Hey guys, Board now back with you, and I'm continuing my reviews of Ozark, the Netflix drama thrill series. So this will be my thoughts on season 1, episode 6. It is called Book of Ruth, and overall pretty strong stuff. So the title is because we go back to the whole issue with the church and the tension between the snails and the birds, and also Ruth, because we see Ruth's plan come. Well, she hatches a plan in this, which is sort of forced upon her a bit because she visits her father in prison. I'll say he's not the most compelling character. He did feel a bit like a southern type stereotype sort, so there wasn't a lot with him, but they're obviously showing how he's kind of giving her instructions from prison and sort of directing things, and she's obviously in a previous episode has like sort of hidden him behind him and used the fact that she's his favourite and stuff to stand up to like her cousin and the others, but he tells her in this to kill Marty off, so I guess that's what forces her, whereas I think she had like a more long-term plan before. So she has this plan where she intends to, and she tries it out. We see like an experiment with this I think it's like a mouse or something, where she's gonna like hook up her boat to like a thing and set off like an electric shot. So she intends to electrocute Marty. So she sets up this whole thing because he comes to her asking if she can give him a lift tomorrow, and she says yes, and originally it's going to be like she's going to drive him, but because she has this brainstorm about this electric shock thing, she actually says, my car's out of commission, so I'm going to have to pick you up in the boat. So they do that, and the plan is to obviously set it up and off Marty, but it doesn't go to plan because the thing is disconnected, and she assumes that it's one of the brothers, or then it's her cousin Carson. So she sort of accuses him, saying, conveniently the thing got unrigged, and she suspects it's him. And there's also a thing in the episode with the FBI agent where he actually asks Carson not to try and kill Marty again, to leave the whole thing alone, and obviously they're having their little thing. So, but it's kind of like obviously he's building a connection to Marty, and we see him, the agent, start to watch Marty, but he obviously, being an FBI agent, he doesn't want Marty to be killed because it like compromises the investigation and that. So he actually talks him into leaving him alone. So I think from that we can probably ascertain that it was Carson who like disconnected the thing, because he obviously wanted, not because he asked him to, so he didn't. He made it so that he wouldn't be killed. And it's quite a tense scene back and forth, and Carson ends up like actually hitting Ruth, and she gets quite sort of bloodied up, and this leads to her and Wendy actually bonding, like, because at one point she comes over because she's like looking for Marty, and Wendy actually sees her bruise and she's quite badly beaten, and like takes her in and starts looking after her. So I quite like that scene. I quite like the chemistry there, and how Wendy's taking more of an interest. I think what's intriguing about it is then it's sort of hard to tell whether Ruth is starting to like look up to Wendy as a mother, like a mother type figure that maybe she's never had in her life, or if it's more like she's just using it as part of a plan to like get to Marty. I like to read it as it's the other way round, that then she's actually enjoying like Wendy's company, and she does see her as like a mother figure, and she likes it when Wendy looks after her. And obviously there's that thing with Wendy where her daughter Charlotte's like at a difficult age, and she's, you know, reacting to the fact that they've been uprooted and moved, and there's a lot of tension in their relationship. So I think maybe Wendy sees it as an opportunity to like bond with someone a similar age to her daughter but a bit younger. So I do see it actually as there is like a sincere sort of connection there. But yeah, again, there's like various things going on with like Marty in this. So the episode actually starts with Marty being, you know, dragged in by the Snells. They like intimidating because he's on his bike and they're driving behind him, and at first he doesn't know who it is, and they start, you know, playing with him, and eventually they knock him off the road and they like kidnap him. And it leads to some good drama, because later on Wendy and Charlotte find the bike on the side of the road and they start like panicking that he might have been killed off, or where is he exactly. And again, Marty does that thing of like covering it up and giving a cover story for the kids, like, but yeah, they're putting the heavy muscle on him because obviously they found out about the whole church thing. And so Jacob threatens him, says, you know, this could be trouble, that's our business, and don't build that church. And he's very threatening, and also he's like confident that, because he's heard about, you know, the whole thing with Dow and them involved with drug money, but they also find out that, or he's confident, then then they're on the outs, then you know, there's been a disagreement and Dell hasn't heard from them in months, so that Dell actually wouldn't be sad if Marty showed up dead, so it wouldn't make any difference. So they seem to have some leverage there, but Marty sort of insists and that's not the case, but he does agree to talk to Mason, the preacher, and try to make it so that the church isn't built to save their bacon. And there's certain things that happen with that. There's actually a funny line about drainage and about actually, sorry, I'm jumping ahead in there, but there's this threat anyway, and they do talk to the preacher and decide that they're not going to go ahead. But then there's a thing at the end of the episode where they actually see a cross that's up, so they actually see that the church is starting to be built. So, and there's further tension in their marriage, because Wendy finds out in this one that he knew about the video. Then Marty has seen the video of her and Gary, and she puts it together later because they have sex at one point, but it's like rough sex from behind. And you know, as soon as I saw that scene, I twigged it was Marty doing it because he'd seen her on the video with Gary, so got the impression that she liked it, and she kind of reacts a bit like put out, like, well, why would you think that after all these years? And we sort of see how clever Wendy is, because she like digs that out and looks on his computer and actually finds out what happened, or then he's been watching that for months. So they sort of have a fight a bit later on, so she knows about it. There's also a bit of flirting with Rachel and with Marty, or at least on Rachel then, like she does start to flirt with him, which I kind of saw coming. It's a bit yawn, whatever. I'm not that into what's going on. They've had some decent scenes between them, but there's not too much chemistry, or it just seems a bit of a soap opera type path to go down. But it could sort of work. They've got the decent enough characters. I would like to see more of Rachel, actually. I don't think they've fully used her yet, but there's also not a bad scene between Wendy and Buddy. They do have this weird sort of relationship, and where Buddy obviously grosses everyone out, and he sort of has old-fashioned views, but they do have some common ground in this scene. They talk a bit, and it's actually a good way to learn a bit more about Wendy's past path. So we find out that she worked for the Obama administration, and there's sort of these little hints at social or political commentary, where she's saying, well, that those were great days, but now I'm stuck here, and Obama's Obama, and Buddy makes this again sort of old-fashioned type comment about how, well, Obama seems like a smart guy, but I could never see myself voting for a Muslim, that sort of thing. So we see how set in his ways and a bit old-fashioned he is, but he sort of opens up a bit about his past with unions in Chicago and why he ended up in Ozark. So it's actually not a bad scene between the two of them. So the big stuff with Charlotte in this episode is then we do return to the thing with her and with Zach, this rich kid, because she gets invited by Wyatt to an FT party, they call it, and apparently it stands for fuck tourists, or fuck the tourists. So it's this big thing apparently, and it sort of subverts that, because it sort of makes it look like Charlotte's gonna hang out with Wyatt, and they're gonna start building a thing up again. But she actually says, she can't do it this time, and he sees her going off because she's been invited on the boat with Zach, so she actually goes with him, and there's a group of them, and then there's people cheering, and there's just this whole thing. I think it's just rich people being kind of obnoxious and loud so. But we're obviously seeing Charlotte starting to have more interest in boys and stuff, and there's a flirtation. Now, it's a bit of a weird scene because she ends up having sex with Zach, but there's a scene with them where, because they're drinking beer and sort of flirting, and he asks her if, you're old enough to drink beer, and she says no, and then they start getting down to it, and they actually have sex, and it's sort of an uncomfortable scene. I think it's meant to be. I think the way it's shot is just meant to show them this is her first time, and that she's not really ready for this. That she's, because I think she's meant to be 17. I think they've said, or something, or certainly around that sort of age. And because he asks her age is, are you legal? And she doesn't really give him a proper sort of answer, but it's an uncomfortable scene. I think the context is that she doesn't know this guy, and it's all a bit rushed, and she's not very. This is certainly, it's indicated it's her first time. So yeah, there's that stuff, and then Zach leaves the next day without saying anything to her, without saying goodbye. So that's kind of an insight, I think, to how sort of shallow he is. And then Wyatt comes back to her, and so you can sort of see what they're doing, where Wyatt says, we don't really belong in their world. We're from like a different world, so kind of playing up like the class thing. But obviously, when sorry, I keep saying Wendy. Charlotte's quite hurt when she finds out. So we're getting a little bit more with Charlotte, which is all right. It's not bad stuff. At least they're giving her a bit more to do. So that's Ozark once again, episode 6, Book of Ruth. Again, some good stuff with Ruth, some decent stuff with Marty, and with Wendy, obviously building up some feuds between the Snells and obviously the Birds, and obviously you've got the other family involved just a little bit. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Share me out once again. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.